Okay, so the question at hand is going over letter F with the dichromate. So, student claims that experimental data indicates the reaction is first order with respect to dichromate. Do you agree or disagree? Justify your answer. Alright, so if we look at the absorbance changes, let me make this a little larger so you can see it more clearly. Alright, so it indicates the initial concentration is 1 times 10 to the negative third, and then it says calculate the concentration at the new time. So you'd be using the absorbance data. Okay. Interesting. Let me look at the rest of the problem. I'll read this over. Hooey. Okay. So I guess what we could do is we could look at the rate of change is about 2.3, 2.2, 1.4. The rate of change is not consistent, so it's not linear. If I would think, I mean, they've indicated that the test itself, you should be able to do this using only a 4-function calculator, but I would think you'd have to take natural log data. Now actually, no. Okay, for as far as F goes, it's not as all complicated as all that, because this is 78. After 3 minutes, it's 39. After 6 minutes, it's 19 and a half. So all you're seeing is you're seeing a decrease of 1/2 each time every 3 minutes. So you could say it's first order with respect to chromate or dichromate because the absorbance level is directly dependent upon the dichromate. Dichromate being an orange solution, which I think they mentioned, and then it changes over to a blue-green. So let's see something. Give me a moment. So my opinion is that the way in which to do that would be something along these lines. Let me show you this. Experiencing technical difficulties. Okay, desk and screen. Alright, so what I would probably do, I think this would satisfy them. If you go time 0.78 and then you indicate that at time 3 it's 0.39, you indicate that that is decreased by 1/2 the quantity or 1/2 the absorbance. Therefore, it should be 1/2 the concentration of dichromate. And then you say, okay, again at 6 minutes we're at 0.195. Again, we're at 1/2 the absorbance. Therefore, we're at, again, 1/2 the concentration. So I would say that would be sufficient explanation. Does that make sense? Okay, so the question posed on the stream is, I'm confused about the order of the reaction. So when something is first ordered, does it have its plot as natural log of concentration versus time as linear? Absolutely. But again, what I was saying was, in this particular case, we don't have to necessarily take the natural log because we're seeing a very specific half-life every 3 minutes, which gives me a first order reaction, because I'm trying to think where it was we looked at those different half-life equations. I don't think they're on your reference sheet. Hold on. Give me a moment. I don't think your reference sheet gives the half-life equations, but I'm not certain, so I'm going to check. Okay, see, they only give the half-life equation for a first order reaction. In some of the tables that we've given out, they basically gave half-lives for the other two. But if it's a 0th order reaction, if it's 0th order and we go concentration versus time, it'll go linear. So what that says is that it doesn't matter what that concentration is over the entire spectrum, it's going to have no effect on the rate at which the material decreases. Now in this case, that's clearly not the case, because let me show you something here. Okay, because from here to here, a time of 3 minutes, we get a change of 0.39. From here to here, we get another 3 minutes, and we get a change of 0.195. And so clearly this is not 0th order, because it's not acting in that way. It's not decreasing linearly. So what we're seeing is some sort of curvature. Now, first order versus second order, if we look at 1 over each of those, even though I know that these aren't concentration data, I recognize that these are absorbances, we can treat them like concentration data. In fact, when you did part E, you noticed that the absorbance versus the concentration were proportional, and I think that's legitimate. But if we do 1 over each of these, and even just stay with the 3 that we're working with, which we can do on a 4-function calculator, we get 1.28, we get 2.56, and we get 5.12. Okay, so just a quick check. If this is 1 over, these are the 1 over the absorbances, we notice real quickly that this change is 1.28, this change is twice that. So again, it's not second order because it's not linear when we do the 1 over data. So we're looking at this change. So the things that clue this in as being a first order reaction, the fact that each change is half as much, the fact that it's clearly not linear, because if that were the case, these data would be 0.78, you know, 655, 0.59, 0.39, and they would decrease, you know, like that all the way down. 0.19 would be the next piece of data. So this is clearly not linear 0th order. Sorry, I'm off screen. All right. So we've got a curved decrease. So I just real quickly, to check to make sure it wasn't second order, I just real quickly did the 1 over data and I see again that this is not linear, this would be curved up significantly, almost exponential. Alright, so to answer to kind of come full circle, if we look at the question basically says a student claims that this is first order. Then we just have to look at these data and see how they behave. Okay, so hopefully that helps. So another 30-second review. Since I'm doing this, and I'm going to put this up in case people can use it, I'll continue along. Basically, if it's 0th order, if we do simply concentration versus time, linear. If it's first order, concentration versus time will not be linear, but natural log of concentration versus time will be. If it's second order, again, that's not linear. Second order, this will not be linear, this will not be linear, but it'll be linear in this fashion. And then just by way of a reminder, if you look at the equations, this is just a y equals mx plus b equation, just swapped around a bit. And you'll notice that the k value is the rate constant that we would bring in if we were writing the rate law thus. Hold on a second, let me just bring this up a bit. So all they're saying with those equations is that if we're plotting in that 2 points on the natural log graph, natural log at some point equals negative kt plus the natural log at the 0th or at a different point. All they've done is rearrange that equation. This is simply y equals mx plus b. Therefore the slope is the inverse of the negative of the inverse of the rate constant. And so the rate for this particular one would be written rate equals K concentration of whatever that substance is to the first power, because it's a first order reaction. If you look at a second order reaction, again the equation that you see, it's nothing more than a y equals mx plus b equation, because it's basically 1 over the concentration at some point equals kt, notice that it's positive in this case because the slope is positive, plus 1 over the concentration at some other point. Okay, so I hope that's helpful. It's a good review of the basics of the different rate laws. And I will post this up. I'll segment this out, and you guys can look at this particular part independent of the others. Okay, let me show you, if you haven't had a chance to look at Schoology today. Alright, I will probably also, if I get an opportunity, I might send out a video regards this. Let me get this changed over. If you look in the updates, they've been vacillating a great deal as to exactly how to submit things. So if you look in the updates today, what you're going to see is a series of discussions, not really discussions, but what was sent out by the guru or the head honcho of College Board testing. And there are a bunch of points that he brings up here. One of the first ones is how you can go about submitting your work. So let's talk briefly about that. Can a student submit a PDF of handwritten work? And the answer is now officially come out that you can upload a PDF of written work, but it has to be as one PDF. Alright, so great deal of the apps, I think CamScanner should do that just fine. Alright, once the photos, now here's the thing, once the photos are saved, They're no longer considered photos, now they're documents. So if you haven't practiced submitting a document, you want to make sure that you're going into the correct space. If you haven't tried that submit thing, let me show you where to find that. I believe I placed it in updates, and I think I will also make that an assignment in the near future. Okay, so please, whatever method you're going to try, please go in, enter practice, or ask it nicely and enter practice. And then what you're going to do is you're going to be given the opportunity to, so just put in any garbage here. They really aren't looking for it. Just have to make it actually an email address, and then practice submitting. So that's right there in the updates. So that was the first thing. Hopefully that answers the question that was posed on the stream. But I would practice it and try it and make sure it accepts it, because that practice machine should behave in the way that the actual will work. Now, a bunch of other stuff. There was a lot of discussion on my listserv about using 2 devices at the same time. Now, the e-ticket thing. You're going to get an e-ticket, you're going to open it. They are saying to use that on one device. They had initially said that you possibly might be able to use it on 2 devices, but they've since changed their mind and said that you can only use the e-ticket on 1 device. Okay, so going back to the question in the previous, for those of you not familiar with Cam Scanner, you may want to look at that as a tool that you could use when you take a picture, and you should be able to, as Colin says in the reply stream here, you should be able to put all the PDFs together as one PDF and submit it. Practice the timing that takes. How long does it take? Because you're going to have literally 5 minutes if you start as soon as your timer turns red. If you decide to run into your submit time to work on your problem, you've got to be aware of how much time you have left, because if you don't turn it in and they don't see a reason that you didn't turn it in other than you ran out of time, you won't get credit. So, a couple other things. You can have 2 devices open. You can have 2 devices both logged in. You can, so some people are planning to just submit a JPEG. You can have the phone already logged in as well as have your computer logged in if you want to look at a larger version on the screen. If you're going to handwrite, now they're saying that handwriting can be submitted as a PDF. This is huge. Some of your phones are going to create what's called an HEIC file. Make absolutely sure your phone is not creating an HEIC file, because that won't be accepted. So make absolutely sure that you've gone through whatever steps are necessary to make your phone save it as a JPEG in order to submit it, or as he says before, you can convert that to a PDF if you know what you're doing. Bunch of people were talking about Apple Pencils, digital ink, equation editors. There's some specific information here as to each of those and how you would go about submitting those. The biggest thing is that there are 2 types of files. This last part's the important bit. Alright? There are 2 types of files that they can process. Text files. Alright? So you could save a text file as a PDF or a docx or a TXT file, or a photo file, JPEG or PNG. Make sure of how you're going to submit it and where you're going to submit it so that it goes through effectively. Alright? There's been a lot of discussion on the listserv about running over your time. That whole time is your time and how you choose to use it. I would just beg of you that you absolutely make sure that you leave yourself enough time if there's a glitch or an issue that whatever you do get done gets submitted. The one I gave out, excuse me, the one I gave out yesterday, that would be Tuesday the 5th, that one is representative of what you can expect on the exam. You can expect both parts to have up to letter J, as much as letter J for the 25-minute one, up to letter G or H for the shorter one. You're not going to get it all done, possibly. Get as much done as you can, pick and choose what you think you can get done, and make sure that much gets submitted, because you do not have to get it all done to get a 5. Alright, so I hope that answers that question effectively. But please, please, please read over the entirety of this. I know it's windy, but the simple fact is this all came out yesterday, and this fellow that wrote all this is like the head honcho, and he's made it clear of what is and what is not acceptable finally. We've been waiting for this for quite some time. That's why you're getting it now. Alright? And the other thing is, please commit the practice problems that I've expected. Alright, hope that helps. Other questions?